Huh? Okay. 3, 2, 1. 2019, the year the Arizona Cardinals gave up on Josh Rosen. Pitched him off for a second rounder. They exchanged some late round picks to the Miami Dolphins. They went on to do great things, like being a part of Tampa Bay's practice squad, so on and so forth. But I mean, that just proves the value of a quarterback doesn't diminish too much. That's why you should be drafting quarterbacks if you have a need at quarterback in the first round. Look at Sam Darnold. I mean, his career was literally put into the ground by Adam Gase. And they were still able to get significant draft capital for him. I'm just saying, it makes all the sense in the world to me. But that's not why we're here. We're going to go back and take a look at the 2019 NFL draft class for each team. I'm going to give a grade, and you're going to tell me about it in the comment section below. Welcome to the Never Too Early Draft Podcast. Go ahead, support the podcast on the available distributors if you want to listen to it ad-free. Links to those are in the description below. What's crack-a-lackin'? It's your boy Broshmo, just in case you did not know. So let's go ahead and dive in because we're going over 32 teams. And of course, we're going to start with the Arizona Cardinals. Let's see, where do I have my grades at? Right here. I'm actually going to move this over here. All right, Arizona Cardinals, I ultimately ended up giving them a B for this class. And this is merely on the fact that I assume Kyler Murray will succeed. Despite what I think about Cliff Kingsbury, I think that his offense, how it's schemed and designed, it just doesn't complement Murray. I really think they need to make the deep passing game a vital part of it. That's just not something Kingsbury, specializes in, dating back to his days at Texas Tech. But I really think he ends up being the franchise quarterback, and he kind of carries the grade here for the Cardinals. Byron Murphy, I thought it was kind of a weird pick just because of the scheme there in Arizona, and he ends up moving to the slot, and he's been all right there. Andy Isabella has never really emerged as that deep threat, but then he was not utilized, I think, correctly. Right off the bat, them throwing him in the slot, I didn't really like that. Zach Allen's been a decent contributor, but by no means would I say he is a stud or like a big contributor to this line. He's just more of a rotation player. So looking at that, their top 100 picks, top 65 picks, Kyler Murray is kind of carrying it. After that, Hakeem Butler, he ended up being let go. He never really developed for them. Keyshawn Johnson ended up being the starter, or ended up getting more snaps initially than Butler. Deontay Thompson, more of a bench player. Lamont Gellard, I thought was going to overtake Mason Crosby at some point. Never happened. Now they have Rodney Hudson. Like the rest of Caleb Wilson, their last pick. He's not even on the squad anymore. Like this draft class, like if things don't work with Kyler Murray, might end up being a straight F. But because Kyler Murray, I think he can be a top 12, top 10 quarterback. He's not there yet. Kind of carries the grade here. Let's move on to the Atlanta Falcons. So this was the notorious, hey, we're going to draft a bunch of offensive linemen in the first round trying to fix our offensive line. Kind of worked out. Kind of. Not really. I gave this class a C. Chris Lindstrom's been great for them. He did get banged up his rookie year, but last year came back and just kind of reran what we saw his rookie season and did improve. The jury's still out on McGarry, but it's not looking good. I don't think he's been pretty bad last couple of years, but typically year 3 is when you really find out, like when these tackles, they take that next step in development and you really find out what you have in them. Kendall Sheffield hasn't really been much of anything. John Kaminsky, John, he's actually been really good for them. Like he is a good part, whether he ends up being a starter this year or a part of the he's going to be a part of the rotation regardless. A guy that is a good edge setter, but you could kick inside. I think that's where he's been really, really dominant. So I actually really like that pick. So it's really this draft class is carried by Kaminsky and Lindstrom because they really got nothing else out of this class. Quite literally nothing else. Baltimore Ravens, it's a D for the Ravens. Outside Trace McSorley, because he's the GOAT. But this class really, I would say they got what? They got Hollywood Brown there. He's probably their best pick. Jalen Ferguson, he's barely seeing the field. I think he had maybe 300 some snaps last year. He's a rotation guy. That's about it. Miles Boykins has never emerged. That's why they attacked the receiver position so hard this past off season. Justice Hill, he got caught up in the running back, the rotation there, running back, and now he's behind Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. He's probably not going to see the field much. Ben Powers has been pretty solid though, but again, another guy that's probably stuck being more of maybe a rotation player or a replacement starter when need be. But he does that role really well, and they literally got nothing out of this class outside of their honestly best picks, probably Hollywood Brown and Ben Powers. Yeah, I gave it a D. It's not that impressive a class, especially considering your best pick is probably Brown. Not to say Brown has been bad. It's just you kind of know what you got in him. He's more of this deep threat, and I don't know. Maybe he looks better now with Keith. Is it Keith Williams there as the passing game coordinator? So we'll see. He's worked with guys like Tyreek Hill. So I'm not saying Brown's Tyreek Hill, but I'm saying there's reason to be optimistic. The Buffalo Bills, I gave this class a C. Outside of Ed Oliver, there's not much to say about this class. Dawson Knox is your average to below average starting tight end in the league. Yeah. Tommy Sweeney, I don't even think's with the squad anymore. Maybe I'm thinking of Kroom. Regardless, Devin Singletary essentially he's in a running back by committee there with Zach Moss now, and even then, everyone in Buffalo thinks they need to add a running back to that squad. I think they're fine. I think Singletary's a fine pick, especially if he's more of a complimentary back. And then Cody Ford just can't. They can't find a place on the offensive line where he plays well, which is a shame. I thought he'd be a pretty darn good guard entering the league. They first initially started him at right tackle, then they switched him into guard, but even that hasn't worked out. Ed Oliver, he's still I would say he's one of the better pass rushers from the interior in the league, but terrible run defender. I know everyone and their mom was like, man, he's Aaron Donald-esque. Not quite. But yeah, gave the class a C. It's kind of whatever. Carolina Panthers, literally only Brian Burns is holding this draft class, holding the grade for this class. He's literally, hold my beer. I got this. The dude he's going to be a Pro Bowler. He's a ridiculous athlete. And it all came together for him last year. He is ridiculous. Outside of that, Christian Miller was kind of in the rotation, but they addressed the edge spot so much. I don't even know if Christian Miller's still on the squad. Yeah, he's still there, but they got guys like Etier Gross-Matos. They brought in Reddick. Reddick's more like a Russian, like a stand-up rusher though. But yeah, he's kind of just buried there. Will Grier, I thought that was a pretty darn good pick, but woof. Dennis Daly, he's kicking to the inside this season, I believe. He did play a little bit of guard, but it'll be interesting to see. He might help this draft class's grade. Greg Little's never really developed. Maybe Little ends up winning the left tackle spot. I highly doubt it, but because it sounds like Brady Christensen's going to be a guard, so yeah, literally Brian Burns is holding this grade up. They're lucky he's so darn good. So I gave it a B. I really considered C here. Chicago Bears, I ended up giving a D. This draft class is literally David Montgomery. They were kind of hit because this was the Kayla Khalil Mack trade, so they didn't have a lot of draft capital, as you can see, but they literally got nothing out of it outside of Montgomery. And I think Montgomery is a great pick, but unfortunately, if the best part of your draft is the running back, your draft probably wasn't that great. Riley Ridley, man, he's been nothing but fun, obviously. Yeah, like, it's just not a good class, unfortunately. Not a good class. Not much to say here. It's a D. The Cincinnati Bengals, I kind of flirted with this grade between a C and a D. I ended up settling on a D. I think Jonah Williams was a phenomenal pick, but I really think that's the only thing they got out of this class. Drew Samples, we've seen bits and pieces of him, but I mean, I still think they could do better at tight end. Plus, that pick in the second round, I thought that was a bit of a reach. I had Drew Sample way further down my list. Ryan Finley ain't even on the squad anymore. Jermaine Pratt, he just hasn't been good. He started last 2 seasons. He just hasn't been good. Maybe that changes this year. Michael Jordan's been utterly terrible. I really liked the Rodney Anderson pick, but man, injuries, unfortunately. Like, he was injury prone going into the draft, and it ended up being still the case going into the NFL. I mean, Williams is still there, but he might not even make the roster because they got a lot of running back depth through the draft this year with Chris Evans and Puka Williams. So, yeah, probably the only good thing about this class is Jonah Williams. So, yeah, I think a D is about right. And I'm going to tell y'all right now, like, we're saving the good draft grades till the end because I was like, man, this was a pretty grim draft for some teams, but it gets better, I promise. Not here, though. Cleveland Browns, I gave an F. I think I only dished out maybe 1 or 2 Fs in this class. And, like, Greedy Williams is probably their best pick. Taki hasn't been great. Mac Wilson, I wasn't high on. He hasn't been good. Like, there is literally nothing good about this class. The only thing holding it together, like, the only good thing you could probably say about this class is Greedy Williams. And that's if he works out. I mean, keep in mind, they just drafted Greg Newsome. It's just we don't, like, Williams has been hurt. He's been beat up, but he might not even get the opportunity to start. They might, like, Newsome, I really think will probably come in and end up being a starter. And you could even say, dude, they brought in Anthony Walker, Jacob Phillips in the last draft, JOK this draft. Like, they have literally and shoot, you even could say safety because they went with Redwine, who I thought was actually pretty solid, but ended up being more of a special teamer. But with their first 4 picks, they've addressed hardcore the last 2 seasons, or off seasons. Getting John Jones, drafting Grant Delpit the last year. Like, this is just a bad class. Dallas Cowboys, I gave a D, which sucks. I liked 2 things in this draft class. One, Donovan Wilson ended up being a pretty darn good pick. He's going to probably be the starter this year, and while I don't think it's not like he's elite, I think he's good. He's quality. I think he deserves to start in this league. That was a pretty good 6th-round pick. But outside of that, Troy Pollard, great. He's stuck behind Zeke, and it sucks. You paid Zeke all that money. While I think Pollard could give you a similar production. Connor McGovern hasn't been good. Tristan Hill's been more of a liability than anything else, man. Gotta quit rolling them ankles, bro. Yeah, all they really got from this class ended up being Wilson and probably Pollard. And maybe Hill develops, but I doubt it. But, yeah, I gave it a D. Let's go. This is a bit more positive. The Denver Broncos, I gave this class a B. I wanted to say an A, but I don't think they got any, like, pro ballers or studs from this class. Like, Noah Fant was pretty darn good because they traded down initially from, I think it was the 10th pick, and ended up taking Noah Fant. So that was pretty solid. Dalton Reisner's been a I would say an average to above average guard in the league. Drew Lock, jury's still out. I'm not high on him, but hey, I'm glad that they waited on Drew Lock. They were like, you know what? He's too rich in the first round. We'll wait. If he's still around in the second round, then okay, yeah, we'll go ahead and take him. They did. Honestly, their best pick probably might be Draymond Jones because he's kind of emerged as this pass rushing threat last couple of years. Like, he saw a big rise in his snaps this past season. So I'm pretty eager to see him, see more of him this year, especially on that defense. That defense is cracked. But yeah, I mean, their first 4 picks, they got 4 starters currently. I don't know if Drew Lock even starts the whole season. We'll see. He's got Teddy there. Watch out. But no superstar. But it's a good class. The Detroit Lions. I gave this a D. We're back to the below average grades. TJ Hawkinson, probably the best pick here. I mean, really looking around, Jelani Tavai has not been good. He's very bad in coverage. Will Harris might end up being a starter this year. If anything, I think he's a good contributor in the secondary. Not bad. Austin Bryant hasn't really emerged. Amani Arawari, they brought in a lot of cornerback depth there, so I don't know if he gets playing time. Travis Fulgham ends up going and playing better on other teams. What a shame. What a shame. But even Ty Johnson, he found his way to the Colts, right? And I think he's in Philly too. I don't know where he's at right now. He's in New York, I think. But yeah, your best pick is probably Hawkinson, and for as good as he is, that's not really going to tip the needle in terms of wins. So, yeah, it's a D. Green Bay Packers. It's an A. This is my first A I doled out. I didn't think I was going to have any other draft classes with A. And like I said, there was a hot finish to this list. So Rashawn Gary, I was a bit skeptical of because I thought he was a bit of a developmental prospect, which ended up being the case. He was kind of a spot, more of a rotation guy in his rookie season, but I think he's really emerged last year. So, and he's developing a lot faster than I expected. I'm still a big fan of the Darnell Savage. He was my favorite safety coming into this class. I thought that was a good get, them trading up, pairing him up with Adrian Amos. Elgin Jenkins, a phenomenal pick. Might be actually their best pick in this class. Just what he does for them on that offensive line really can kind of move here and there. Very nice. And then they get probably nothing else out of this class. Jay Sternberger hasn't really done anything. And then obviously you've had the unfortunate issues with him recently. Kingsley Kiki is... That's all I got to say. Ty Summers might end up being probably the best pick after the second round here. And even then, they've been desperate to find, but I mean, they've been so desperate to find a linebacker there. They've really been plugging and playing a lot of different guys there. I mean, they brought in Camille Martin in the next draft and Chris Barnes. Is it Chris Barnes, the UCLA guy? So it's not even Summers is contributor anymore there. So, but yeah, it's literally carried by their top 50 picks, and they're all probably going to be starters, with Jenkins probably being a Pro Bowler. Gary, I think, has that potential. Savage, I think, will just be a very good safety in the league. The Houston Texans. I gave this a C, and I feel like I'm being very generous, I guess is the word with it. Titus Howard, jury's still out on him. He's had some ups and downs. The move to right tackle after playing guard, which he looked good at parts, and then he started struggling again. They've brought in guys like Marcus Cannon, who probably is going to be playing guard, but they also brought in Lane Taylor, which might be more of an indictment on Max Sharpen, who's kind of been up and down. So you're kind of hoping that those two offensive line prospects that they drafted fairly highly, hoping something works out with them. Lonnie Johnson, the move to safety may have saved his career because his rookie season was such a disaster, and he actually looked pretty darn good at safety last year. Warren is still on the roster, but injuries have been an issue with him. Honestly, Charles Menihu might be the best pick here, which is unfortunate because they're moving more towards a 4-3 scheme with Lovie Smith. At least I assume that's going to be the case. And I feel like he's more of a 3-4 end. Like I think he's built to be a really good 5 tech. So that it's going to be interesting to see how they utilize him, but I think he's been probably their best pick thus far. Lonnie Johnson honestly might end up being their best pick, based on how good he looked at safety last year. But I gave it a C. I mean, they got probably 4 starters out of it, and I would say Howard and Sharpen's jobs are kind of on the line this season. Then the Indianapolis Colts, I gave it a C as well. Like their first, you could say their first 4 picks, their top 100 picks, you got question marks. Rocky Sin, after a pretty decent rookie season, ended up not being that great last season. So much so they ended up losing his job he ended up getting pushed out in the depth chart. Ben Banagou's never really developed. Paris Campbell, obviously injuries have been huge with him. Bobby Okereke looked extremely good his rookie year. Very good in coverage. And then last season, just crapped the bed. Like, Kerry Willis might be their best player in this class, at least thus far. Marvell Tell, he ended up opting out last year. Like, he's going to be in, because they moved him to corner, he's going to kind of be in that mix for who's good, like, for cornerback depth. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with that. So, if anything, they got a bunch of guys that are going to compete, but Willis might be the only one that actually ends up being a starter next year. Okereke could. We'll see. But even EJ Speed, he's a special teams guy. So I gave it a C. I think it's a pretty average class. Excuse me. Jacksonville Jaguars. I gave this a B because Josh Allen, when healthy, and now probably in a scheme that will benefit him a lot better, I think is a wonderful pick. Easily probably their best pick. You can make a case for Gardner Minshew. Like, they probably got one of the better backup quarterbacks in the league. Like, the guy last year I thought was still pretty darn good despite the lack there of talent around him and obviously how terrible the defense was. So I don't know why they haven't traded him yet. I think he's going to, after getting Trevor Lawrence, I think he could get a pretty penny on the market. Josh Oliver, just injuries have kind of derailed his career, so much so that they ended up trading him. Jawan Taylor had a sophomore slump, and like I said earlier, typically the 3rd, 4th season, you can tell how good your tackle will probably be. So this is kind of probably we'll get a better evaluation of what type of player Taylor will be. So I think the jury's still out, obviously, on him. I don't think after a bad sophomore season he's gonna be bad. Raquel Armstead not on the roster anymore. Quincy Williams is still there, but he's not gonna see much playing time. At least I don't believe so. But yeah, Josh Allen I think would be much better. And keep in mind, like, the Jaguars last year weren't blitzing at all. They were really relying on 4-man fronts. And Allen was constantly handed double teams just because there was nothing else threatening about that defensive line. So I still think Allen's a very good pick. Kansas City Chiefs, I gave this class a nice B. I honestly think Rashad Fenton might be their best pick here. He came out and he has been really good in this more man heavy scheme. Just very, very good. Nicole Hardman, I think he came into a perfect situation. They knew exactly what type of role that they wanted for him, and they ended up getting him. Obviously, I think there was better wide receivers on the board, but I don't think that takes away from like how important he is to Kansas City. Juan Thornhill, he was a banger. Then the ACL injury kind of derailed a bit of obviously the last part of his rookie season and going into last season. But I think he'll bounce back. Colin Saunders, I thought was going to be a very good pick. I thought he was going to develop, and he just hasn't really. Darwin Thompson's buried on the depth chart. Might not even be with the team after this year. Nick Allegretti might end up being the starting center. Hold up. I know it's going to be more of a battle, but I mean, he's had some spots. Like, he has started at points. Oh yeah, they got Austin. Oh, I forgot about Creed Humphrey. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. There's a lot more depth on the interior now. Initially, so he's like, if anything, they got a good. I think he's a solid backup to have a guy that can shoot and play guard as well. So I ended up giving this class a B. I like the Fenton pick. I like the Harmon pick. And I love the Thornhill pick. I think they got 3 quality starters there while having a potentially good depth there. And Alec Greedy, who I don't know if he even makes the roster. That they got a lot of good depth there on the interior. The Los Angeles Chargers gave this a fat F, and this sucks. I actually really liked their class. Like, I liked Jerry Tillery. He just initially he came out and I thought he was pretty misused. I thought he was more of a gap penetrator, a guy that you want to utilize his athleticism, his explosiveness. It's just the physicality of of NFL offensive lines have really messed him up. I think he might be better this year under Staley. We'll see. Nazir Adderley is not nearly as good as I thought he would have been. He was another guy I was pretty high on coming out of Delaware, just because he was just a ball hawk deep safety. But he hasn't really been that. Trey Pipkins was a developmental tackle at best, and it just hasn't worked out. Honestly, their best pick might be Drew Tranquil, who put in some spot starts at linebacker, but he's mainly been used as a special teamer, but he's a darn good special teamer. So, yeah, it's an F. Your best pick is a special teamer. Jury's still out on Tillery. Maybe he emerges a bit this season. I mean, they had Easton Stick in here, but obviously Justin Herbert made that an afterthought. But, yeah, it's an F for me. And then going to the other Los Angeles team, I gave them a nice C. They have nothing but backups on their that is literally what this draft is. They have a ton of backups from this draft class. Greg Gaines, I thought was going to be a really good pick, and he hasn't really emerged as a starter. He's just been kind of a rotation guy at times. Bobby Evans and David Edwards, they've started at times, but they're probably going to end up being just bench guys this year. David Long, he might see more of a bump in snaps this year, but he hasn't really been that good when asked to play. Darrell Henderson ended up getting replaced by Cam Akers. Taylor Rapp, he essentially ended up getting replaced by Jordan Fuller, and Terrell Burgess really has emerged there too. I think Taylor Rapp will still have the most snaps out of anyone in this class, because I think they're going to play a lot of 3 safety sets. Like, Burgess is the guy you can also throw into the slot. I really liked Burgess coming into the draft. So it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, I gave it a C. This really just feels average. I mean, they were managed to get good depth. Now, me being a Dolphins fan, you would think, hey, I'm probably going to be biased. Hell nah, dude. I gave this class a D, dude. Christian Wilkins, I think, coming out, he was an older prospect. I thought he was what you see is what you're going to get. He's not much of a pass rushing upside. He's really just a run stuffing DT. That is exactly what he has been. Not great with the 13th overall pick. Michael Dieter hasn't been anything. Really, kind of the saving grace to this class has been Andrew Van Ginkel, who really kind of emerged this past season, and I think we're going to see a bigger role for him. Myles Gaskin, obviously, kind of been the starter for the Dolphins at running back, and I think he's fine. I think a lot of people give crap because, they need a stud running back. No, they don't really. They really don't. I think they could get by just fine with what they have, and they have. But yeah, probably, yeah, this is a D class. It's kind of lackluster. Yeah, they got Gaskins. That's nice. Ginkgo might be the best pick in this class. Wilkins, he's fine. But yeah, I'm a Dolphins fan, man. I'm being brutally honest. People get mad at me about Dolphins takes, which is weird. It's I've been a Dolphins fan for my whole life. A lady never tells her age. What can I say? But my whole life. So yeah, I'm gonna be honest about the Dolphins. Like, I'm not a delusional fan. Minnesota Vikings, I gave this class a D as well. People love Garrett Bradbury. He's a top 10 center in the league. I think he might barely crack the top 20. I don't think he's that good of a pass protector. I think he's, especially coming into this season with how much they address the offense, the offensive line, I think he's easily the weakest part of that offensive line. And we haven't even seen what they have in Christian Darrisaw and Wyatt Davis. But I think he still ends up being the weakest part of that line. Irv Smith Jr. might be their best pick here. He's going to get an uptick in snaps. And I really think he's a good receiving threat. Alexander Madison, he's been a quality backup. Drew Samia, they essentially replaced him this year because he'd be playing bad, yo. Armand Watts, I thought was a pretty solid pick, but he hasn't really the guy hasn't really been given many opportunities to play, and obviously they added a lot to that defensive interior this past off season, so it's like he probably won't. Marcus Epps ended up doing good things for the Eagles. Chris Boyd ended up being a 7th rounder. Who would have thought? But yeah, BC Johnson, he's there. But yeah, honestly, what are you getting from this class outside of a starting center, a backup running back, and maybe a pretty darn good tight end? We'll know more this season. I'm going to give it a D. Then the New England Patriots, I gave this class a C. Their first 2 picks, woof. N'Keal Harry, I wasn't that high on him in the draft, and it ended up being true. The guy he has great hands, good contested catch guy, just can't get separation, and that's kind of been the case. Like, he's been most successful in the slot there in New England, where he could get free releases. Joe John Williams, which I talked a little bit to Patriots Global about this, because it sounds like that he might end up being more of a safety / dime corner, dime back. But still, that's your 45th overall pick. Man, come on. Their draft doesn't get good until Chase Winovich. What a steal. I thought he could have gone in the first round. Easily their best pick. Damian Harris is probably going to take the job from Sony Michel. And they've literally got nothing else out of this class. Jarrett Stidham, there's a reason they drafted Mac Jones and brought in Cam Newton the year before. So, yeah, this class, I gave it a C just because I think Winovich is that darn good. But it sounds like apparently him and Bill Belichick butt heads or something. So it's just a shame. He's been good when on the field. So, which that would obviously, I think, make this class an F. I think Winovich's the only thing holding it up. Honestly, this might be a D class. I think I may okay, Brian Cowart, he's kind of he's a good depth guy. I'll say that. Yeah. The New Orleans Saints, I gave it a B. This is where they lost their first round pick because of the Marcus Davenport trade. And among other picks, didn't have a third. Eric McCoy, easily the best pick here though. He is one of the he is so underrated in the league. He's just so darn good. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's been a pretty darn good slot for them, and it sounds like that he might be moving to safety, be eventual replacement for Malcolm Jenkins. So watch that. But with those first 2 picks, I think they kind of nailed it. The others were late day 3 picks, so it's kind of you don't expect those guys to work out anyway. So I gave it a B for what they were working with. I thought they did a pretty darn good job. The New York Giants, the football Giants, I gave this class a B, mainly because Dexter Lawrence, I didn't think he could be a 3-down player. He's been wonderful. He's been among the best parts of that defensive front next to Leonard Williams, and then obviously Dalvin Tomlinson, who's not there anymore. But then they got quality players in here. Darius Slayton has been, I think he's a solid wide receiver too. If anything, he's good depth, good deep threat. Ryan Conley has been good in parts. Julian Love, I mean, that secondary now is so deep, he's probably not going to see the field much, but that is very good depth with Love. O'Shane Himes, I think he's a good like passing down type of player. Obviously, the kind of the bad things in this class is like, is Daniel Jones a franchise quarterback? I didn't think he was a first rounder. They took him with 6th overall pick. I mean, if they believe that he was a franchise quarterback, then yeah, go and get your quarterback, boo-boo. But we're really going to find out if he is that franchise quarterback this year. So jury's still out on him. Obviously, that would hurt the class. DeAndre Baker, we all know what happened with him. Kind of an idiot. So, yeah, I think overall this class could be a B depending on what happens with Jones. And then the New York Jets, I gave this class a C. Quinnen Williams is legit the only good part of this class. Ja'Kai Polite, Swedish fish. That's all I got to say. Chuma Edoga I think will end up being a good backup tackle. Blake Cashman, just health, man. He can't stay healthy. Blesson Austin. We'll see more of him this year. We'll see how he is under Robert Saleh, but jury's still kind of out on him. But for a 6th rounder, I think you've gotten more than you probably would have initially expected. So I'm kind of eager to see that. Him next to Bryce Hall. Oh, I love Bryce Hall, man. I love Bryce Hall. I hope he succeeds. So maybe they have a good cornerback room there. We'll see. But really, it's Williams that's really the only good part of this class thus far. So I gave it a C because Williams is that darn good. All right, we got the Las Vegas Raiders. I guess they were still Oakland at this point. So this was the Khalil Mack trade, and essentially where they had all the picks. I gave this class a C, I think. Yeah, I gave it a C. So Josh Jacobs might end up being the best part of this class. Running back value, I'm sorry. It's running back value is a thing in today's NFL. If anything, if you want your running back to succeed, if you want a good rushing game, it all starts with the offensive line. Just get running backs that fit your scheme, and you could have a successful rushing game. Just constantly look at the teams that are in contention for the Super Bowl year in, year out. Tampa Bay. You wouldn't say that they invested a lot in their running game. I don't think they did. I mean, Leonard Williams was essentially a cast-off. Yeah, I mean, Ronald Jones, yeah, 2nd rounder, but I mean, even him, like Leonard Fournette ended up taking a bulk of the carries at the end of the year, and even then, they bring in Giovanni Bernard. So with as a cheap, bring him in for cheap. See the Chiefs, you'd be like, well, the Chiefs invested in the first rounder in that. Yet we're talking about Damian Williams more in the Super Bowl game. In the year before, he was just a journeyman. The Niners the year before. Raheem Mostert, just a journeyman. So yeah, that's kind of like my spiel. Like, I think it's all starts with the offensive line. As for the rest of this class, Max Crosby, I know a lot of people really, really love, and he's a guy that gets a lot of praise. I thought last season was a bit down. It was just this guy was always on the field. Always on the field, and his win rate's not necessarily as good as some people may think, but for a 4th rounder, I think they got a solid contributor. Like, he might be their 2nd best pick in this class. Cleveland Farrell's starting to come around. I think they kind of like figured out how to utilize him a bit better. But still, he's your 4th overall pick, man. Come on. Jonathan Abram. I think Raider fans like him. I don't know why. I don't think he's that good. He's one of the worst coverage safeties in all of the league. Trayvon Mullen, we'll see. He's gonna take more of a cornerback 2 role. At least I initially think with Casey Hayward there. But either way, I think Casey Hayward will take a lot of pressure off Mullen. So we'll see with him. Foster Moreau, Hunter Renfrow. Hunter Renfrow's a fine slot. Foster Moreau is a good backup tight end. Like this class, you gotta say, exceptionally average. Like you could be like, well, they got starters here and there, but it's like, do they though? Like Cleveland Farrell, Max Crosby. I mean, that duo was so dominant they had to bring in Yannick Ngakoue. Jonathan Abram? Shoot. They brought back Carl Joseph, and they drafted Trayvon Mullen. They're still figuring out the cornerback position. So, yeah, that's all. I think a C is a fair grade here. Philadelphia Eagles. I gave this class a D. Miles Sanders, easily the best pick here. Andre Dillard, we just don't know what you have in him. And he might not even win the starting left tackle job with Jordan Mailata there. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, he's kind of the guy that made me fall out of love with contested catch guys. Where I was like, man, this guy's constantly he's like an NBA center or power forward. Like, just he'll post up. He'll post up corners, but he has literally not been that in the NFL. He's been a big letdown, and this is why I'm not a big fan of guys that are almost essentially just contested catch guys. So if you want to know essentially that's it right there. Like, if you want to know why, it's like, why aren't you high on this guy? It's like, if they're almost essentially only a contested catch guy, blame J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. I will never be burnt again. Now, Pittsburgh Steelers. This class is a bit interesting. Could end up being an A class. I gave it a B because Devin Bush, I want to see him healthy. I really think he takes the next step this year, along with Deontay Johnson. I loved the Deontay Johnson pick. I was a big fan of him. Drops were a big issue last season. If we could see more consistency from both these guys, more so the health for Bush, then they may have some studs there. Justin Lane was I think Justin Lane was going to get he was at least going to be a starter this year, essentially. And then, that arrest, I don't know if that really hurts him that much. We'll see. Benny Snell's a fine power back, but, Isaiah Buggs has kind of been a depth guy there, though. That's kind of nice. So, but really, this class is those first 2 picks in Bush and Johnson. You could even include Lane there, those top 100. Lane, I still think will get an opportunity to play this year, so we'll see. But I gave it a B. And then here's my next A, San Francisco 49ers. This is the first 2 picks, bangers. They will carry the whole class, but it didn't stop there. Drew Greenlaw has been a very good starter next to Fred Warner. So much so they were like, Quan Alexander, get the heck out of here. Obviously, Jalen Hurd, he's been hurt, so we don't really know what they have in him. They moved him to tight end as well, didn't they? Can't recall. But Caden Smith, speak of the devil, that guy's been on a ton of different rosters. But Tim Harris is still there. Justin Skoll, he just tore his ACL and they released him. But he even contributed a little bit. But yeah, this was a really good class. Just for Bosa, just for Samuel. Phenomenal. And then getting Greenlaw in the 5th is very clutch. The Seattle Seahawks. Very average class outside of DK Metcalf. He raises the grade here for me. I ended up giving him a B. Just because DK Metcalf is a insane threat. He is a nightmare to have to game plan for. Especially when you got Tyler Lockett there. Ooh, tough. But LJ Collier, obviously, probably not a great pick. I didn't even have him in my top 100 during this draft. Marquise Blair, he's been good in spots, but probably going to end up being a rotation guy. Cody Barton, they ended up drafting essentially his replacement the following season in Jordan Brooks. Gary Jennings, he didn't even make the roster, I think, because he was with the Dolphins for a little bit. Ugo Amadi, he played a little bit in the slot, but he's probably, I don't even know if he starts this year. He might. It's not like they're bringing in a ton of guys from the draft. But yeah, we probably will know more about him this year. But I think he ends up being the starting slot. Travis Homer, he's just buried on that roster. Like, he's been good at part. He's like he's showed off, but like really, I think Seattle's kind of proven that any running back can succeed in our system. So yeah, I gave it a B. Like I said, really, it's DK Metcalf carrying this draft class water. And then we just got banger draft classes after this. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, man, almost all their picks worked out to some degree. I know Matt Gay's not the kicker there anymore, but there was promise there. But Devin White, he's finally emerged. People gave me crap or like, he's good. It's like, no, he's actually pretty terrible in coverage. You get picked on quite a bit, but he has that athletic upside to be good. And then Tampa Bay, it really was during that late stretch last season where he emerged, where it's like, oh, it's all starting to click for him. And Tampa's really getting a good idea of how to utilize him. And he is just this scary threat you got to like hold accountable. Sean Murphy-Bunting, he's an okay slot receiver. Nothing great. But Jamil Dean, excuse me, he's my favorite pick in this class. Jamil Dean is a quality corner, man. Like, they started him halfway through his rookie year, and I was like, man, watch out. This guy is really good. So much so I thought, like, he made my defensive rookies, like, he was a candidate in my defensive rookies of the year. And it was like rinse and repeat last season. He was pretty darn freaking good. Mike Edwards, he's had moments. I'll say that. Like, I mean, they've used him. He's come up with some big picks. So he's more of like, I think, a guy that they put in the rotation, but still, like, that's solid. Anthony Nelson's more of a run stuffer, but like, he's more of a rotation guy. Scotty Miller has shown some flashes. Again, buried by some wide receiver depth there. But yeah, like, this is just a really good class. The Tennessee Titans, they ended up getting an A. Like, literally, I think their top 100 picks were all bangers. Jeffrey Simmons, he ended up being a great pick. The guy I think he's going to end up being elite. Like, last season, he took a huge step. Like, he showed a little bit his rookie year because he came back late from injury. And it was like, okay, solid. I knew he was a good pick. And then last year was just like, oh, crap, watch out. This guy could be freaking dangerous. And we haven't even got to A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown is a top 10 receiver in the league. The dude is phenomenal. I love A.J. Brown. But let's talk about Nate Davis. Like, low-key, they started him, like, they kind of threw him into the starting lineup as a rookie. And I thought he got better down the stretch, but still it was like, he might be average. And I think last year, he looked good. He was not a liability on that offensive line. Nate Davis really came into his own. He developed a lot faster. I thought he was more of a developmental guy. He developed a lot faster than I expected. And then, of course, you got Amani Hooker here, who will see a bigger role with Kenny Vaccaro gone. I thought they would have used him more in the slot, but now he moves to safety. More box, so they could still utilize him in the slot, but they got a lot of guys there that could actually play the slot. What did they bring? Kevin Johnson, Elijah Molden. So, yeah, he's going to probably play safety, but he was a guy that I really liked in this draft class. David Long, he's a special teamer. But, yeah, just a banger of the first three picks. I thought they nailed it. And then the Washington football team, or whatever the heck they were called back then. I actually gave this class an A. I really like this class, mainly because Montez Sweat had such a big jump in terms of production from his rookie season. Granted, that's next to Chase Young, but still, that's a scary duo you're going to have to deal with. Terry McLaurin's fabulous. He's easily a top 3 receiver in this class. It's a real tough with DK Metcalf, A.J. Brown, and then Terry McLaurin. Those guys are just all amazing. He's a top 10 receiver in the league, I think. Dwayne Haskins, they didn't trade up for him. They gave it a shot. It didn't work out. I think still, like, I think it was still worth it in the end take a shot on a quarterback. It didn't work out. Hey, at least they didn't have to trade up for him or anything. But Bryce Love, I thought was worth a shot. Injuries kind of suck. But Wes Martin, not great. But Cole Honeycomb has been solid. Jimmy Moreland, he's been pretty decent in the slot. I mean, I still think he's probably a replacement starter at best, but that's good depth to have there. And plus, I was kind of a big mark for Jimmy Moreland anyway. I was a huge fan of his. Kelvin Harmon is there as a possession guy, but he's probably still going to make the roster. Yeah, this class, obviously, it's held together by Sweat and McLaurin because banger picks. But like there is, I think there's some quality there with Moreland and Holcomb. But yeah, we finally got to the end of the video. Keep in mind, we're going to be doing 2019 NFL redraft tomorrow, so be here for that. But as always, until next time, you be easy, my friends. Later.